Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
How are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm quite lovely. How are you?
I'm doing good. Do you like my socks?
I do. I love your socks. Lily's socks have cats on them. They kind of look like Hello Kitty.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah, I'm getting some strong Hello Kitty vibes.
No, thank you to my friend Ale who bought me these socks for Christmas.
That's awesome.
I know.
I was very excited about my outfit today because I call this my Snape cape.
Ooh.
Because when I walk, you know how like in the Harry Potter movies, Snape's cape is like always like in the air?
Yes.
I realized I kind of look like that, so I feel like I'm really giving Severus Snape today, and it feels right.
I love this.
Yeah, so let's just say I had a little too much time on my hands this morning.
Let's talk about boredom, actually.
Yeah, on that note, let's talk about being bored.
Yes.
You know, boredom has come up a lot actually in recent sessions, thinking about like the function of like substance use in people's lives and other like target behaviors of just trying to pass time.
Yeah, I agree actually. It happens with, I don't even, it's not specific to my adolescents, although my adolescents are a lot more willful to try any other skill set sometimes because smoking weed specifically is the one that they really enjoy doing. But even with my adults that go into substance use or substance abuse, because I don't really work with substance use a lot, boredom is the number one trigger to doing anything that's not effective or unhealthy.
Absolutely.
Even with like one of my clients texting her ex-boyfriend, prompting event was she was bored.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did that work out for you? Not well, actually.
And not boring.
Definitely not. Well, it was very triggering.
Yes.
So yeah, not boring at all, actually.
What is boredom?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I've actually experienced it a lot this week.
Oh.
Because my caseload has dropped because thankfully 4 of my clients have graduated.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very happy and excited, although my caseload has dropped, so don't know how I feel about that. But, you know, there's successes. So I have a lot more time on my hands. And because my schedule's been thrown off, I'm like sitting there, like, because I feel like I have something that I have to be doing, but I don't. So then I get bored.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't have something to do. I have nothing to do. And so it feels like the sensation where you're restless, you want something to do, but whatever you want, everything you're giving yourself, it's not like clicking of like, I'm excited to do. You're not excited to do anything except something that's just out of reach.
I love the way you put that. Feeling restless because you don't know what to do with your time.
Yeah.
And you have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really at the core of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to just be, how to be present. I remember one time I was on vacation with Charles, and I enjoy working, and I'm like a little bit intense. So we were like sitting, and Charles was probably just enjoying himself reading a book, and I was like, hey, quick question. What do people do for fun? Like, what would be like? What's a fun thing to do? And he was like, chill the fuck out. Like, that's a fun thing to do. And stop being weird. That's one option. Yeah, so just not being certain what to do with your time. Sometimes people really struggle because when they're bored, they have a lot of thoughts, maybe anxiety. A lot of different stuff can show up in those moments.
Yeah, and one of the things I actually explain to a lot of clients is like when you're bored and you don't have anything to do and you're a thinker.
Yeah.
Because we have people that are like thinking is kind of their normal state of mind. When you're a thinker, your brain's going to take you to the past, your brain's going to take you to the future, your brain's going to take you to all the things that you don't like. And to them, one of the things that I actually suggest is going into being creative.
Yeah.
And not creative in a sense of having to do art or doing something creative, imagination. But imagination in a positive way.
Yeah.
Like I actually was telling one of my clients yesterday, I was like, when you were a kid, when you were bored, because millennial generation, like later, early millennial generation. So like us, we didn't really have phones.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily have computers, which would have been nicer, but at the same time, even the now generation still gets bored. Like boredom is still a thing whether technology existed or not. But I was like, what did you do when you were like 4 and you were bored and you didn't have anywhere to go and you were an only child? So what did you do? And she was like, I used to imagine things and I used to go into imagination. And I'm like, okay, well, do that as an adult. And she was like, well, but the only thing I know how to imagine then is my love life. And I'm like, okay, just don't choose anyone that's in your life right now. Get creative.
Yeah.
Create a fake person and create the best scenario of how that relationship's gonna go. It's just an imagination.
Yeah.
And so then she talked about what if I want it to become reality. So what would you suggest to that?
Well, I think some things are better in your imagination.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like fantasy, being able to kind of go through different things, but it may also speak to identifying the things that you actually want.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can't marry Jude Law on The Holiday. Maybe you really can't. And there might be an iteration of a person that things that you're learning from that, of like things that really kind of excited you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of the same reaction and response I had with her. And also, and I didn't say this to her, but I'll say this here now. Like, when I got bored during the pandemic, I was by myself.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have anyone living with me. I couldn't go visit my parents. I couldn't go visit anybody, pretty much. I would go to work, come home, and there was like this whole week where my TV wasn't working, so I had nothing to do. And I really did start like imagining my life. And of course, at that point, I was single, so either it was my career that I was imagining and my future, or like falling in love and having a person. And then I started journaling.
Yeah.
And when I look back now, 4 years later, from that time, and actually half of the things that I wrote down are in Adriel.
Yeah.
Like, it turned out part of my imagination did come true. My little prince in my mind became Adriel Arenas.
Well, that's really sweet.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, that's really adorable.
Can't promise that to happen for everybody. A lot of the other stuff didn't come true, just an FYI. There was a lot of things in there.
I am very curious about this. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm like, okay, I'll take a copy. Yeah, and there are things that like are better in reality.
Yeah.
And there are things that are worse.
Yeah.
But I think that it's so interesting, like, of thinking about being able to take our mind to new places. And I think that's so important because our brains typically go where they've been.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really kind of have a practice of thinking outside of what we know.
Yeah.
And I do think it's really important because we want to start to be able to have more control over the different places our mind goes. Like, a mind unattended probably wants to think about, again, what you did in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
All the things you should feel shame about. But I really want my mind to go to a different kind of place. And one of my favorite things to do is to actually refocus my attention on the present moment, and then to start thinking about what is something I would be excited about. Maybe traveling. Like, traveling is something that I find really exciting, like being able to like see a koala bear. Like, that sounds pretty cool. Koala bears are awesome.
They really are. They're so cute.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. I want to see a polar bear.
A polar bear?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little spooky, but I can get down with it.
It's mainly because, you know that meme, there's a meme or a gif or whatever they're called. There's a white polar bear that wakes up from hibernation. That was my favorite gif, by the way, because it's me.
I mean, yeah, I think we can all relate a little bit to a polar bear waking up from hibernation.
I want to see that polar bear in person. But I like this imagination. And that's the thing where sometimes, and boredom, because the reality is boredom means you just really don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, we have so many options. Like, if you're someone that enjoys reading books are everywhere, right? You can always pick up a book and read it. If you're interested in art and drawing, just grab a pen and do it without thinking whether it's right or wrong. Like, don't, if you're bored, don't think you have to do something that's like going to bring you enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Just do something, whether it's like Sudoku or, and don't go for TV and do not go for your phone because that actually doesn't help boredom whatsoever. Meditation is nice. But if you're gonna go into imagination, like I started using imagination as my form of coping with boredom this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, not to get to a topic that's gonna be triggering, but I'm imagining, and I was telling, I don't remember who it was, but I think it's one of my friends, where I was like, I'm imagining our country next year after the election.
I think this sounds fun.
And his harmony.
Okay, that's what I was imagining too.
Right? I'm imagining a better education system, a more streamlined healthcare system, like our roads being fixed, economy being better, me being able to buy a house because the economy's gotten better, like a bit of Republican and Democratic views mixed together,
mm-hmm.
and it having a harmony. And my friend was like, that's like not going to happen. I'm like, that's not the point of my imagination.
Yeah.
The point is I'm bored and I get to choose what I want to imagine. It doesn't have to, it's not about it becoming reality. It's about me spending time doing something, imagining something that brings me joy, and then coming back to reality.
Yeah.
I'm bored. Don't tell me how to handle my boredom.
You can do, live out that dream. And I think what's important to start to clarify as well is like, it's okay to have stillness, to not be doing things. It's just boredom usually indicates you want to be doing something. And that's why we're talking about starting to add something to those moments, because it means that something's missing. Like we're feeling that for a reason. Because sometimes you just want to sit home and you're had a long day and you're just like, I'm going to stare at the wall for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Respectable. Do what you need to do.
I'm not mad at that. I support it all the way.
Yeah.
Fully.
And it's those other moments when you feel like something's missing, where you're like, where do I want to take my time? Imagination is such an amazing place to go.
Yeah.
I like to take mine to really smutty books.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What book?
So right now I'm reading a book called Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood.
Oh.
And it's about love in academia.
I love this.
It's amazing. And so whenever I have a moment and I'm like noticing wanting to do something, I find myself like reading, or I do my jigsaw puzzle. I have a sushi jigsaw puzzle.
Ooh.
And dare I say, it's pretty fantastic.
I like this actually. I love reading. Reading's actually one of my favorite hobbies. I really enjoy it. Walking, going on walks, like when I get bored. But I will say, I don't know why reading, one, because it helped, it helped me learn how to bring my focus to something. And depending on what I'm reading, which I tend to like to read, not imagination, but like self-help imagination stories. It's interesting because it's a story, but it's philosophical stories.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read philosophical stories, and because I get to imagine what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, I feel like imagination for me is one of the best ways to regulate from boredom.
Absolutely. That was so beautiful. And I came in and I was like, I like to read smut.
But that's beautiful too. I actually want to read your book.
Oh, I'll bring you. I have a whole shelf of this category of books.
Ooh.
But yeah, it's amazing to be able to just figure out what it is that fulfills you. And there are times when one of the things that I always talk about is when we're trying to find like activities to engage in, at different moments in time, our focus changes. Our ability, maybe we feel really agitated and you can't focus on words. Mm-hmm. That's okay. And so we can meet ourselves where we're at. Mm-hmm. And there might be some times where maybe you're having intrusive thoughts, so you really can't focus on just one thing. So you're like, I always say that it's easier to be engaged the more senses you have engaged.
Facts. I 100% agree. And I love that actually. using your five senses is one of the best ways
Yeah.
to bring you into experiencing
Yeah.
whatever it is you're experiencing, because our five senses are what communicates straight to the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one of my favorite sounds to listen to is birds chirping.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time I hear it, I purposely take my attention to just, even no matter what, but it actually happens in my apartment often. I just take my attention to listening to the birds, and it shifts everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
So your five senses are one of the best ways to bring you into experiencing life in your present moment.
Yeah.
And to really take that experience in, whether it's boring,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's beautiful, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, whether it's like a nice break, whatever it is, using your five senses is what brings you into that experience.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And it helps so much to start to like be aware that it may be harder for my brain if I don't have them all engaged.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what's going on. And so a lot of these practices are all about starting to weave in being non-judgmental towards where we are in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such an important like piece to bear in mind, particularly as we're like navigating boredom.
Yeah.
And we don't want to end up in like I can't even enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be aware of how much stimulation is really required to get our attention.
Yeah.
Sometimes I notice that it's really hard to even watch 10 minutes of a movie without picking up my phone.
I know.
And we start to have to retrain ourselves. And so to be able to have the openness to, maybe I'm just not used to this. I'm used to something else now. So I have to get back into the swing of this. And so we start to learn all of these things about ourselves, and it's really hard sometimes to accept where we are.
Yeah, I agree. And especially when you're bored, it's really hard to accept that you're bored.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things where, if you can, what I tell a lot of my clients, I'm like, if you can tolerate boredom and just keep reminding yourself this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
Whether, like, in the beginning, it's going to feel a little miserable until you get used to being bored. Because once you're used to it, it's not that difficult anymore.
Yeah.
But you have to get yourself to get used to being bored, instead of giving into smoking weed, drinking, texting your ex-boyfriend with ex, or anything that's just not a healthy behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get used to sitting in the discomfort of not knowing what to do, and time's going by really, really slow, because every single time you look at the clock when you're bored, you're like, it's only been 3 minutes.
Yes.
If you can sit with the discomfort and let that pass, just like everything else, time is going to pass. Time passes, you don't have control over that. Every mood shifts and passes, and once you get through it, kind of going back to the self-validation, then you're functionally validating yourself that you can get through boredom without an external thing saving you from feeling bored.
And it's so interesting thinking about like an external thing saving us.
Yeah.
And that could be creating chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like one of the methods or making things worse.
Yeah.
And so we kind of move into these old patterns of behavior where we know it's a slam dunk. Like maybe texting someone who you're like, yeah, this is really gonna like shake things up a bit, but do I want them to be shaken up in that way?
Yeah. And it's funny because it really is like, in that moment when my client was like, well, I was bored, and I was sitting there, and I missed my ex-boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I missed him, I thought it would be nice for him to be aware of my emotions. And I was like, and after that text message, did you still miss him? And the other thing, actually, more so, like, sometimes when you're going through boredom, it's okay to go through waves of emotion too. Like, if you're thinking about people that were in your life in the past, but not really people that stuck around for whatever reason, they weren't really healthy enough to stick around, it's okay to sit in the emotion of missing them without acting on it.
Yeah.
That's part of being bored. Letting yourself go through the wave of emotions that also exist within you without giving into any action.
Absolutely. And it's okay, for different emotions to come up, different feelings. Yeah, you miss somebody that maybe is better off not being in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like, that you're talking about giving yourself the time to really be able to determine what's the best course of action.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of people that, you know, we may miss in our lives, but maybe there's a reason why they're not there anymore. And so as we're starting to do that, it's like, every once in a while, sometimes I miss, like, being a kid and seeing, like, using a VHS.
Yes.
But yeah, the VHS tapes sucked.
I know, they really
You had to rewind them. It was like a huge pain in the ass. So I'm not like gonna go out and get like, you know,
not gonna
Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen's detective agency. But
you know what I've decided to do though, because I have a bunch of videos
really
on my phone that I don't like. I don't want them to be on my phone. I want to save them, and I don't want to save them in technology because I'm over that phase of saving everything inside of a computer.
Yeah.
A lot of my stuff from 2010 no longer exists because I saved them inside of a computer that no longer exists. And there's a lot of stuff in my iCloud that I cannot find.
Yeah.
Because I have to keep paying for this cloud that I don't know what it is. So I've decided I'm going to put all my videos in a CD, not a VHS, in a CD.
Love it.
And I'm going to use it as a DVD player.
Well, on today's episode of How to Determine If Lauren and Lily are Millennials, Lily is now using CDs.
Not VHS though.
Yeah,
I'm not a boomer. I'm a millennial.
Yeah, so but all of those things, like, sometimes we realize that there's something that we miss, there's nostalgia. But sometimes nostalgia stays nostalgia for a reason.
Yes, it does. And sometimes when you're bored, you have genius ideas. Like, I'm going to put these on a CD.
That actually does seem like a lovely idea.
Right? Listen, sometimes when you get through boredom, if you put your phone away and you put TV away, you actually realize you kind of have a good time with yourself.
Yeah. You realize you're going to Marie Kondo your apartment. I did that. I got to the point of taking everything out of the closet and then realizing I didn't feel like doing it anymore. That is my number one. I'm like, I had so much energy, but then I was like, the energy was gone.
And was Charles in your life at this point?
Oh yeah, it was last weekend.
What did he do?
He calls the second bedroom my lair because it's just disturbing all the time. Like, there's like a line behind where my computer is that's like appropriate for other humans to see on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of the room, which is like some sort of tornado storm with between like dog bones, clothing, like
and all the
boxes.
Mess.
It's just such a mess. So
I get it.
You have to be careful with what projects you start when bored.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I don't start projects when I'm bored.
Yeah. See, that's good advice. Don't start it until you're out of the boredom, because you will wake up mid, clear out and be like, what the fuck am I doing?
I don't want to do this anymore. I am done. Yeah, there was once where I promised my mom that I would clean up Shiva Couture. Shiva Couture is her whole garage. This is how bad my mom is. My mom has a garage filled with clothes and shoes. My old bedroom's closet, my brother's old bedroom's closet, and their master bedroom's closet. And my dad has like this tiny little.
He has a box.
He has a box.
Yeah.
That suffices him.
Yeah.
And every single time, my mom is like, "Dude, you gotta come help me clean out this place." I'm like, that is. Shiva Couture is on another. Like, we have gowns. She literally buys gowns just because they're beautiful and they're on sale, and since one of us is gonna have to wear them.
Of course.
Jackets that's like you wear in Alaska during winter time. I'm like, Mom,
this is amazing.
If you ever want to come into Shiva Couture, I'll take you. Please take clothes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not a project you're gonna start mid boredom. Yeah. That's
not a project that I really want to start ever.
I get that.
Yeah. Unless I need clothes in my closet, then I go shop there.
Yeah.
That's the only time I take on that project for 10 minutes.
It's a good project.
Right?
So for our listeners, I think what's most important is being able to identify what boredom is,
Mm-hmm.
what they want to avoid when they're bored.
Yes, yes, definitely. What unhealthy patterns that
Yeah.
we all have.
And then how do you want to redirect? Do you want to explore imagination, explore an activity, and how to pull themselves out?
Yeah, and another thing is one of the other ways to redirect is just trying to figure out what, like, planning for your future.
Yeah.
Planning for your future is also another way of redirecting yourself from boredom because it gives you something to plan for.
Yeah.
And it really is a self-esteem booster as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, for today, we hope you weren't bored with our little talk.
We're so funny.
We're so funny. Happy Thursday. Please, again, leave us comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, if there's something that you want us to talk about. And we will see you next Thursday.
See you